Now, back to Cofield and Company on ESPN, Las Vegas.
Whoever reported that I told the band not to play the fight song, that's idiotic. Y'all know that. Like, when you saw that, you know that was a lie. We got to start having some kind of accountability. Thankful for many of y'all that take your job and your craft serious, and consequently, you get facts before you run with false narratives.
Yeah, Deion and the Buffs, super funny off the field, but I don't know, is it funny on the field or just kind of sad? I mean, it's early. They could still bounce back. Shedeur, if engaged, could lead them to 8 or 9 wins, but the way it's unfolding, and I think the way it's going to unfold this week, is about what I predicted. Caleb Herring is in. He played college football. He played for lots of different coaches. He watches college football. The Buff story, the way it's unfolding, is really interesting. And I know you didn't like something at the end of the game, right, Caleb, in terms of the buy-in from the starting quarterback when things were, the chips were down.
Yeah, the quarterback has a responsibility to be the leader in all circumstances, and with the understanding you're going to take the blame, you're going to take accountability, win or lose. You're going to get too much credit or you're going to get too much blame, and that's a part of the position, and we've known that for years, right? That's not new. So when I see a quarterback leaving the field 2 minutes before the game's over, and this is at any level, much less college. But at any level, that just does not feel like the leadership that a quarterback should display for so many reasons. And I think there's pretty obvious. And then to follow it up with a press conference that seems very deflective as far as taking the blame. And, I've been a guy sitting in a press conference getting questions thrown at me with the understanding that there's so much more to this team game that is out of my control. But having to sit there and take the blame, and because it's the right thing to do, that's what the leader's supposed to do. I think it's hard for a guy that I think is talented. This is not I guess Shedeur Sanders is not one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best on the field quarterback that we have in college football today. But that moment for him was not a bright one that he'll look back on, and hopefully he's been coached and counseled and bothered about that, because I don't think it was a good look for him and what he aspires to be as a leader. And believe it or not, some people think that his celebrity may be bigger than the speculation, but that can hurt him when it comes draft time. And when these guys are trying to pick the quarterback of the future, the franchise leader, things like that, I think could be a detriment to where he falls in the draft or what teams are going to take a chance with him. But it just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't like to see that from quarterbacks. Especially though quarterbacks who already have a narrative around them, as Deion Sanders kind of alluded to. Chasing narratives, you make it really easy to create a narrative about Sanders and the Sanders family when you do stuff like that.
Caleb, Cofield was just talking about it. It doesn't look good for the Buffs at all. Now they're playing their in-state rival in Colorado State. We saw what happened last year. But Colorado, they have the same problems as last year again. The O-line, they can't run the ball. How do you think this game is going to go against Colorado State?
I think it's going to be similar to last year's game. I think this is going to be a shootout where the skill positions have, the biggest say in things. 30-plus points on both sides, I would assume, and not a lot of handoffs. But I think, like with every game, whoever can control the trenches at the end of things will be able to come away with the game. And it's not, putting up 200 yards rushing. It's when it's 3rd and 2, can I get 2 yards? That's, I think, what's going to decide this game. I think this is a pick'em game. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole if I was a bettor, but I'm not. So I'm excited to watch it. I don't know that Colorado football is not a train wreck. I don't know that they'll actually win games, but the storyline that is Deion Sanders is worth watching. And this is one of those games that is for sure worth watching anytime there's a rivalry game. But I think, what they did last year, I think there'll be a lot of eyes tuned in to what happens in this one.
Let's go to the NFL. Let's talk Caleb Williams and maybe some things that you didn't love in his debut in terms of bad habits.
I think one of the big concerns on the field, obviously Caleb Williams getting drafted number 1, there was some off-the-field chatter about who he was as a leader and if he was mature enough. That's neither here nor there. I think you put a lot of that to bed with Hard Knocks. But the on-the-field stuff that was a concern was the way he extended plays in college in a way that was seen as highlight reel material. And would he try to do that in the pros? And I tell you what, Patrick Mahomes does it sometimes, and it looks like it's, the way to win games. But I can tell you from experience, and, anybody who's played quarterback at a high level will tell you, you can't rely on that kind of playmaking and randomness to get you wins. And I think I saw a little bit of Caleb Williams in his young career, kind of leaning on those things, holding on to the ball too long, taking a huge unnecessary sack, and not really getting to his first progression quickly enough, and getting to a play that gave him free access quick enough. So looking for the home run ball, I think, was a concern with Caleb Williams, and he just played within a structure. And that's part of the reason why I thought Jaden Daniels had a chance to be a more successful in his rookie campaign, because he showed that he could do that. And I think he did have if you looked at the individual performance, he had a better game than Caleb Williams. Obviously, Caleb Williams got credit for the win, and it's very strange to say Caleb Williams won the game because he didn't do very much to actually win the game. But the Bears did win. So, and there's a lot of eyes on Caleb Williams. So we'll see if he learns from that going forward. Hopefully that teach film will, it's his first full game, obviously. So there's a lot to learn from, and hopefully he does that.
Moving to another quarterback in the league, Thursday Night Football did not disappoint with the Ravens and the Chiefs, especially coming down to the end there where that last touchdown did not count because of the toe. But I'm curious on your thoughts on Lamar Jackson, who rushed for 122 yards. Derrick Henry just 46. So we're seeing the old Lamar where they tried to get away from him running so much. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, first of all, the NFL scripted that beautifully, right? It's almost like they wanted that to happen in the Thursday night opener for the season. But I think Lamar Jackson is a cold dude getting back to his ways. That's a Drake reference for the boomers out there who can catch it. Sorry, Steve. But I think Lamar Jackson is back to his running ways, which I think makes him the most dangerous quarterback. I don't know that he's going to ever be the most elite passer, but when he adds that dual threat, when he's making plays with his legs, I think he opens so much up. I don't know if it's sustainable, and that was the worry for the Ravens. And I think that's why you bring a Derrick Henry in, to try to take the burden off of him to use his legs. But because they got down, and because of the style of play, because the offensive line for the Ravens was not full strength, it was not handling the defensive line of the Ravens, I don't think Derrick Henry was able to get going. So I see that changing a little bit. But Lamar Jackson playing the way he played is why he's one of the most valuable players to ever play the game. And obviously he missed a couple throws at the end of the game that he wishes he had back. But everybody else in football is afraid of Lamar Jackson when he's on that mission. We saw what he did when he destroyed the league in his first MVP season. He struck fear into the opponent. And I think he's getting back to that this year. He has something to prove, especially when you look at his comments on the kryptonite, the Kansas City Chiefs kryptonite. I think he has a chip on his shoulder. And as the reigning MVP of the league, it's strange for him to have a chip on his shoulder. I like Lamar getting back to his ways.
Let's talk a little Tyreek Hill. Obviously, you have a lot of perspective on this. There's certainly the racial aspect of it. There's also the law enforcement side of it. What do you think about what Tyreek Hill did, how it was handled, and how it's been handled since?
I think it's been handled kind of poorly since. I think it's almost like it's trying to drum up every time to like reignite some narratives that don't really accept accountability on either side of the issue, right? Whether it's Tyreek Hill downplaying his role in how things escalated, or the law enforcement community kind of rallying around the behavior as if any sort of action by a suspect or a victim is justification for going overboard and not being the professional in the situation. So I think that's the main thing I take away from it, the narrative creation. Immediately after it, and this is kind of the poison of social media, immediately after there was, he was going 100 miles an hour and all this stuff, reckless driving. We made the comparison to what we've experienced here in Las Vegas with athletes, high-profile athletes speeding and having involvement. Very similar vehicle too, which just made it even worse for this whole narrative. But I think once the facts came out and once everything was cooler heads prevail, I think you'll understand that there are some facts to this that everybody can learn from. Drivers can obviously learn how to interact with police and have the respect for authority that's appropriate and deserved by the badge. And the badge needs to have an understanding of what is tolerable and what is necessary and what your professional role is in these situations. And obviously de-escalation is the word that comes to mind. But this was one of those situations that could have been easily avoided by asking the right questions, maintaining your composure and handling yourself professionally on both sides of this. I think there's fault on both sides, and it can't be so divisive that we can't acknowledge that both parties may have been at fault in what was ultimately a stain on the ledger of law enforcement and professional athletes alike.
Now a short week, and then hosting division rivals Buffalo Bills on Thursday. In your opinion, does this affect the Dolphins on the field at all?
I don't think so. I think, I mean, they played a game immediately after. I think if anything, it would have affected them that game. I think Tyreek Hill shook it off. He got a touchdown, even, I think, kind of inappropriately made light of it on the field. But I think it's kind of one of those things that these are professional athletes. They'll play football when football happens. And football becomes the escape more than anything in these kind of situations where you start to appreciate the game more. You start to, honor your position as a professional athlete, the ability to go out and do this and not, be in a situation where you may have unfortunately, gone in the complete wrong direction and became a lethal situation. So I think the guys in the locker room have showed that they appreciate their opportunity as athletes and they are thriving on the ability to go out and play to escape from the noise. So I think the game will kind of quiet things down for them. And once everybody gets back to their normal routine and the players get back to football, I think they'll be fine. There won't be any lasting impact from this.
Caleb Herring's on Cofield Company. He's one of the co-hosts of the Barry Odom radio show. It goes down tonight right after us, 6 o'clock. It's every Wednesday. It's at 2:15 in Flamingo. That's the Parkway Tavern at 2:15 in Flamingo. $2 on the Miller Lights during the show between 6 and 7, and a great spot to watch football on game days, $5 shots and drafts, $6 cocktails. Weekdays, breakfast, buy one, get one. That goes from 7 to 11A. All right, let's hit on the Rebels before we get you out of here, and then 60 minutes of Rebels talk again is coming up after 6 o'clock. Listen, they're going against a Kansas team that threw for nearly 450 on them, had a bunch of long touchdowns, rolled up some really big plays. So what's the key for the Rebels on defense to slow down Kansas this time around? Is it better scheme or better personnel?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the personnel has definitely had some changes and adjustments to match up against a team like Kansas. But I think it's discipline to the scheme. And I wouldn't say the scheme necessarily needs to be better. I think it needs to be adhered to a little bit tighter. And I think on a broad basis, everybody needs to be on the same page. The way that Kansas plays with motions and shifts and eye candy before the snap, they try to make you get out of your assignment, technique, and alignment. And I think they took advantage of that a lot last year. Keep in mind, this is a Kansas team that's returning all of the receivers that made big plays last year against the Rebels in the bowl game are back. And so they're going to have some familiar faces. I know Cam Oliver probably had the bone to pick with the receivers, and the receivers probably are envious that Cam Oliver got 2 interceptions on him in the third quarter last year. So there's going to be a lot of storylines to follow, but I think the meat and potatoes of it is, can UNLV limit the explosive plays, and can they control the line of scrimmage? Devin Neal has not gotten enough attention, I think, because he is a stellar running back. He's probably the second best running back that the Rebels will face this year behind Ashton Genty. So I think his ability to hurt them on the ground, coupled with explosive plays, you can't give Kansas a two-leg go offensively. And I think that's going to be their focus. If it's any indication, based on what we've talked about so far this season, UNLV is really focused on the explosive plays. So I think they'll try to put a lid on that and trust their front seven to stop the run.
Caleb, we got 30 seconds left. I see Dylan Raiola is getting a lot of attention for being a Mahomes clone. I'm going to go Matt Sluka, Richie Cunningham, unless I can find another redhead. But are you into the whole Raiola Mahomes thing?
It was cute and funny at first. It was a good laugh. But at this point, it's like plagiarism. I don't know what it's called when you mimic a person, but he's stealing his identity is what he's doing. And he's probably making money off of it. His NIL value has probably gone up because of this. It's getting ridiculous. I think I'm more annoyed with it now than I was before. I think Patrick Mahomes has a legit beat. This guy is capitalizing off of my name and image and likeness. So it has to be stopped.
All right, Caleb. We'll hear from you in just a little bit. Thanks for checking in, buddy.
All right, guys. Take care.
There he is, the former Rebel quarterback. Barry Odom Radio Show is coming up live at Parkway Tavern. Get out there and see it. 15. Check that. 2:15 and Flamingo. It's a 6 o'clock start. If you can't, it's going to be right here on ESPN Las Vegas.
Your home for Westwood One's radio coverage of Monday Night Football all season long.